It appears that the New York Giants have finally landed their veteran quarterback. And for those of you who have been paying attention for the last month or so, it should be no surprise. We'll talk about it on the Big Blue Breakdown coming up in just a moment. Hi again, everybody, and welcome to the Big Blue Breakdown Live. I'm Paul Dottino. So glad you could join us tonight for a special breaking news edition of the program. Look, when news breaks, you sometimes have to drop everything. I had a plate of pasta that had just come out, hot sauce, cheese, it was all ready to go. And all of a sudden, bang! News breaks. Well, this is what we do when news breaks, folks. We go into action. We mobilize. We figure, what can we do? Because after all, my job is to be the conduit to you, the fans. And as you no doubt know, within the last hour or so, the Giants have announced that pending a physical, there are reports out there, and Russell Wilson, the former Seattle Seahawk, the former Denver Bronco, the former Pittsburgh Steelers, is landing a deal with the New York Football Giants. This, again, is not a surprise for those of you who have been listening to me on this program for the past month, or if you've been listening to me on the Big Blue Kickoff Live show. Since the moment that the Los Angeles Rams pulled Matthew Stafford off of the trading block, and we knew that the Giants were shopping in the Tier 1 department store, it was obvious from the second that the Stafford deal fell through that Russell Wilson was going to be the guy. The problem, of course, you just didn't know what he was thinking. You didn't know what Aaron Rodgers was thinking. You didn't know what the Atlanta Falcons might or might not do with Kirk Cousins. So there were a lot of ifs to this musical chairs game. You just didn't know exactly how it was going to shake down. But it always seemed certain to me, my gut feeling, based on the crumbs and the tea leaves that I had been compiling since the combine, my gut feeling had always been that Russell Wilson would be the Giants' starting quarterback week 1 in September. I have conveyed that to you multiple times on this show. I have conveyed that to all the folks who listen to the daytime Big Blue Kickoff Live show on Giants.com. Well, it has finally come to pass. Now, according to the published reports, Wilson is coming to the Giants on a one-year deal. And only about half of the money is guaranteed. And supposedly, we're only talking a little over $20 million. Now, what do we know? We know that Russell Wilson is a 10-time Pro Bowl selection. We know that he was selected to the AFC Pro Bowl squad this past season with the Steelers. He's 36 years old. He's not the same Russell Wilson who led the Seattle Seahawks to the Super Bowl twice. One Lombardi Trophy, one an interception short on the final play of the game. He's not that guy anymore. He is 36 years old. But here's what Russell Wilson does for the Giants. He brings an extensive resume of winning. He brings mobility. He still has mobility. Now, he runs about half the time than what he used to run when he was in his prime with the Seahawks. He has cut down on his running by about 50% or so. So he's not that guy anymore, but he does incorporate mobility, moving pockets, all part of his game. He's very good on reading defenses, on checking down, okay? And he's exceptionally good at throwing the deep ball. He's done what they call the moon ball forever. That's where he drops back and he unleashes like 60-yard bombs downfield and drops them in the bucket as if Willie Mays is making a basket catch in center field. So this is what we're talking about. This is the kind of guy that the Giants are getting. Now, last year, he had a leg injury coming out of camp, and so Justin Fields started. Well, here's what we're going to do. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking to Max Starks, the radio analyst for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm just trying to make sure I got all my electronics squared away here because I got to get this link to him so that Max can actually get in. Max Starks, a former lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who is now their radio analyst, okay? He is going to come on tonight, and he's going to tell us everything that we need to know. And let me see here. I just got to make sure I can get this thing to him because if he doesn't get this link, we're not going to be able to talk to him. So what I'm going to do, let's see here. We're going to go there. We're going to go there. We're going to get this cell phone going. Max and I had a correspondence just a short while ago, and he said on short notice he would be willing to do this for me. And I am so appreciative. Please just come on in. I'm telling Max right now, please just come on in as soon as you can. Thank you. See, this is what we call taking you behind the wall of production. Because when things like this happen and there's breaking news and things are going on the fly, it's kind of like a quarterback dealing with a zero blitz, right? You got an audible, you got helter-skelter going on. It's a 2-minute drill. You're doing what you can. Bang, 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 bang. You got to go. You got to make it happen. And that's what we're trying to do for you folks right now. All right. So what else does Wilson do well? Well, I think it's extremely important to note that even at his advanced age, okay, Russell Wilson is very careful with the football. The easiest way, and I've been telling people now this for a while, the easiest way for a team to lose games is to turn the ball over, to give it away. Okay? That's the easiest way for a team to lose games. Now, here's the thing. Russell Wilson doesn't do that. Last year, 16 touchdown passes in 11 games, only 5 interceptions. In fact, even in his year in Denver, the previous season, when he started 15 games and they went 7-8, he had 26 touchdown passes and only 8 interceptions. We're talking about ratios of more than 3-1. Every coach will tell you that they would like, okay, they would like at least a 2-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Okay, that's what they would like. If you could get a 3-1, you're really, really happy. Well, how about that? Wilson, still at this advanced stage in his career, still going at over 3-1. We're talking about a winner. We're talking about a guy with extensive experience and, quite frankly, a guy who can really help the Giants get back to respectability. All right, so let's see here. Yep, we should have Max coming on any minute now. In the meantime, what does this mean? Well, the Giants have the veteran starting quarterback that they've been after now for a while. They also have a veteran quarterback in Jameis Winston, who was signed as a backup. From the second that Winston signed that deal, I remember telling people when I got the word, okay, he's going to be a backup. He takes Drew Lock's spot, okay? And let's see the details on the contract because that will confirm it. Drew Lock was on a 1-year deal for $5 million, and reportedly Winston's deal is 2 years for $8 million. So he comes in a little cheaper than Drew Lock, which solidifies for all concerned that he is the number 2. He is the backup. Tommy DeVito right now is the number 3. So here's what the Giants have to decide. They've got to decide if they even want to think about taking a quarterback sometime on day 2 or day 3 of the draft to be a developmental quarterback who they believe, in all likelihood, if they're going to do that, That's a guy who they're going to believe is going to make their 53 as a developmental guy and will be number 3 on the roster, which then puts Tommy DeVito in a spot where either he goes to the practice squad or he winds up getting claimed by another team. But that's the issue right now, because Tommy DeVito has proven he is a competent 53-man roster quarterback. He belongs on an NFL roster. I mean, there's no question about that. Okay? So that's the good news. The bad news is, right now, if the Giants do decide to take a QB on the second or third day, well, then in all likelihood, it means that they believe that guy is a project potentially for the future, whoever it turns out to be. And it also says that there won't be room for 4 quarterbacks on the roster. That guy's going to be taken as a project, which means you keep him on the 53, and it means Tommy either gets bumped to practice squad or gets claimed. I mean, it's just that simple. Now, the Giants could very easily decide, you know what? We got 8 picks in the draft. We're not taking a quarterback at all. We're just going to wait till next year, when some draft gurus are saying there could be as many as 5 first-round quarterbacks in the draft next year. So this gives the Giants immediate respectability and credibility, and really puts them in much better shape than they have been since the quarterback room had been empty, or somewhat empty. Now they have slowly started to build it. All right, I'm getting a message from Max. He's trying to get into us. He's going to be with us hopefully momentarily. If hopefully we got this link all squared away, and the gremlins, hopefully the gremlins in the internet will not screw us up. That's the big key right now. We don't want the gremlins in the studio to screw us up. But right now, that is what I'm concerned about as we try to get Max Starks, Steelers radio play-by-play guy, into the broadcast. So let's see here. All right, still a little bit of electronic glitching. All right, that's okay. That's okay. Not a problem. We will take care of business. We'll make this happen. Let's see. All right. So far, everything looks like it's working, so he should be able to come in momentarily. Oh, Tudu! Azarit, there he is already. Look at this. We do an emergency breaking news program, and he says, much love and respect, all diehard fans, greeting from across the pond, as he always does, from our entire rugby club in Italy. We say, forget about it. Tudu, again, thank you as always. You're always coming into the program, and I can't say enough. How about this? This is awesome that some of our regular viewers and regular listeners to the show are actually able to get in here so quickly, even though we just announced that we were going to do this breaking news show a half hour ago. So I'm very, very, very grateful for that. I don't know why we're having a little problem here. And there we go. There's Max. Let me see if I can add him to the stage now and make this whole thing happen in a wonderful, beautiful way. Max, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing this evening?
Oh, my friend, I cannot tell you how pleased I am and how appreciative I am of you being able to join us. We have some mutual friends. You know Lexi over at Sirius, right?
Correct. Yep. Lexi.
Yeah.
Lexi's my bud.
Yeah, she's the best. And I told her, I said, you know what? Is Max starts a really cool guy or what? Because I've heard him before. He sounds good on the show, and I got to get him to talk about Russell Wilson, because this Giants deal is hot news. Max, we usually do the show on Wednesday nights, But with this breaking news, I had to do something tonight, and you were so generous to be able to come on short notice. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Nah, no worries, no worries. I had to get the kids situated with homework before I jumped on, and luckily, it's trapezoids and parallelograms for my fifth graders, so we're okay.
Oh, well, let me tell you something, Max. This quarterback puzzle has been much more difficult than the toughest geometry class for the New York Giants, as they have tried to navigate themselves through these free agent waters. We know that Matthew Stafford got pulled off the trading block by the Rams. And from that moment, I always thought that when I heard the people in Pittsburgh were really kind of focused in on Rodgers, I always thought that Wilson was the best bet for the Giants and that Rodgers would go back to Pittsburgh. So, first things first, how surprised are you, if at all, that Wilson has reportedly landed a deal with the Giants?
You know what's funny is I was a little surprised because I thought that the Giants were going to go a little bit harder at Aaron Rodgers just because of the style of offense, what Brian Daboll, kind of has weapons wise, that would have been appealing to him. But at the same time, you look at this pool of free agents, like you said, once Matt Stafford gets pulled off, there wasn't that many like young guys, mobile guys available. So you were literally trying to pick the best pedigree of the guys 10 years plus in the NFL, right? I mean, you're thinking about even a Geno Smith. Obviously, we know that experiment did not work before, so I knew that wasn't going to be a retread. And then you think that Kirk Cousins, the speculation's been behind it, but it hasn't been strong headwinds. So then you're left with once Justin Fields signed with the Jets and Stafford re-signs, where's your quarterback pool going to come from? And Daniel Jones obviously is not an option. I mean, you're carrying that dead cap money from the deal that you did with him just a year and a half ago. So it is a little surprising to see Russell go there. I think it's great weapons for him. I think it's something that he has the skill set to be able to do something with it. But it was a little bit of a surprise, especially when the NFL is trying to get younger and more mobile at the quarterback position.
All right, so now that apparently the Giants have found the piece that they were looking for, could you give me a capsule as to what Giants fans can expect? This is a 36-year-old Russell Wilson. He's not the same guy who led the Seahawks to 2 Super Bowls, 1 victory and 1 loss. I think everybody understands that. And on one hand, we all know outside of Pittsburgh that he won his first 6 of his first 7 starts last year when he came off the injury to the leg. But then we also know about the fade at the end of the season. So if you can give me a thumbnail, and maybe there's 2 sides to this, let us know, what are New Yorkers expecting?
Well, I think for New Yorkers, I mean, the one thing you can expect is a guy who does not turn the ball over more than he throws touchdown passes, right? I mean, we're talking about efficiency. You have to keep that in the silo for Russell Wilson. He's still very judicious with the football. He's going to take a couple more sacks than you're probably more comfortable with at the quarterback position because he's not mobile. He's going to move to evade and escape versus move to create, right? And
Right.
that's what think of Daniel Jones. He moved to create and try to get downfield, try to get the first down. Russell doesn't have those legs like he used to. Like you said, this is not the Seattle version. This isn't Seattle's best Russell, right? This is going to be a very, you have to be very patient with him. The run game's going to have to be on point for Russell Wilson. He thrives off of play action. Now, his deep ball is still a pretty deep ball. Malik Neighbors is going to look really good underneath one of those passes, right? Walking into the end zone on like a 40-yard dart. That's what you can expect. There are going to be some explosive plays, but you're also going to have to get through some of the stuff when it's quick throw action. If it's not straight to the sidelines, middle of the field is not going to necessarily be his best friend. So anything with Jalen Hyatt across the middle, right, and any of those other type of slashing type plays, you won't really see as much of that until it gets to the red zone. But a very efficient quarterback, like you said, won 6 of his 7 first games. Had that monster game against Cincinnati last year, and you were like, "Holy crap! This dude threw for over 400 yards." Like it's in there, it's in there. It's just tucked away. It's like going to an antique store. It's like you have to dig through a lot of trash to get to those gems, right? Not everybody's going to have a buffalo penny or nickels just sitting there for you. You have to dig and find and throw some stuff to the side. But he has those moments. So to be able to have baited expectation, this isn't a Super Bowl win. Think of this as a bridge, and he's a bridge that can get you above 500. That's what you have to think about, and that's really the first step when you think about the Giants rebuilding. Get to 500, right? Work with the pieces that you have, and now use it as a springboard for whatever you do after this season. But this year, you have to say, let's just get back to average, because it's been a little bit below average the last couple of years.
No, a little bit. Actually, you're being very kind, Max, and
Yeah,
thank you so much.
I am.
The report is that it's a 1 year deal. Do you suspect that there's enough gas in that tank to potentially go maybe 2 years? Or obviously, if it is a 1 year deal, both sides must think that there's enough gas for this season, and maybe after that they're going to play it by ear.
He has enough gas for one season. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, the body, the environment, right? Usually when guys get older, they tend to creep down south, right? Where the warmer weather's a little more temperate. You can go get a little umbrella drink in the off season. You know, and look at Tom Brady, right? For all those years he spent up in the cold in New England, he was like, yeah, I like Tampa Bay. That sounds like a good spot to finish it off at. And now he's between LA and Vegas with his Fox job. So he's not going in the snow. So, older court, you have to think about those things as you get later in the season. I think those weather aspects really did affect him. At the end of the season, like he wasn't as warm, a little bit tighter, right? Because it takes more time to kind of warm up to the
Sure.
weather and everything in a game time situation. So, I think there's enough for 1 year. And I think that's why they kind of honed in on a bigger 1 year deal as opposed to spreading it out over two to kind of give them a little more relief with dead cap money. They said, hey, this is 1 year. We don't want to tag it on. There's no voidable years we can add to a 36-year-old, and a contract. So just make it 1 year. Incentivize gets up to 20. 10 and a half is the only guarantee, which is a nice, safe number to write in there for your salary cap, considering what the Daniel Jones dead cap hit is. So I think it's a very advantageous deal that won't hamstring them, come next year in free agency or in the draft if there's somebody available.
Now, Max, I had said before you came on that he still shows some mobility in terms of a moving pocket. He can still get horizontal and check it down and throw a little bit on the run.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that Brian Dable does like to have some escapability in his quarterback. He's not a guy who wants a straight drop back guy who's going to plant that foot and get rid of the ball. He wants a guy who's going to be able to give him a little bit of time, because the Giants' offensive line, let's face it, over the last several years has not been the most stout in the league. So
Yeah.
do you think that Wilson has enough of that left in his legs to be effective in that style of attack?
Well, being that Russell played against the NFC East last year, so we actually have an apples to apples comparison. He was mobile enough against the Giants defense. He was mobile enough against the Commanders defense. Where he struggled was the Philadelphia defense. So when we
Most
kind of
people did,
compare,
Max.
well, just about everybody did. I know. So when I think of that, and I think of that's 6 of your 17 games, right, is in that division. I think, for him, one thing that you're going to probably see, Paul, and this is something that I noticed late in the year, was that, when he does drop back and he is moving left or right, when he's escaping to his left, the only negative tick that I can say is he drops that shoulder and spins off of his throwing hand, which,
Okay.
if you know about that, you lose the defense when you do that. And then he has to reestablish himself to the defense. So if you are going to do pre-designed rollouts for him, make sure they're designed with his eyes downfield and not the reverse bootleg variety, because that's where he's going to struggle in those. So if you're trying to keep it, it's like make it a more running, moving type of pocket versus the reverse boot out and he's getting out to the open area. Even though he is a shorter quarterback, you would think that would be something a positive for those type of quarterbacks. But
Mm-hmm.
for him, because he holds in the pocket and drops that right shoulder and spins off of it, he loses his eyes downfield. So that's the only bugaboo negative. If I can make a criticism about Russ that I saw that kind of hurt him at the end of the season, teams knew that and they forced him to do that a lot more often.
You mentioned the fact, and I also talked about this earlier, his touchdown interception ratio is above 3-1, which will make every coach smile. Even in his advanced age, he still takes care of the ball well. What is it about him that has allowed him to stay away from taking the risks or forcing the issue? Because when a guy starts having diminished skills, sometimes they don't want to admit that and they will force the issue. He doesn't seem to have been doing that at all.
I think experience, right? I mean, experience is the greatest teacher, and when you've seen everything that Russell Wilson has seen, teams have thrown the book at him. There's no surprises left. I think when you get younger quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks, there's still a novelty or a naivety at the position. So guys are going to be more riskier when they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make those throws. They're going to say, "Oh man, my arm, I can gun it in that small 4x4 window between two defenders, and my guy's trailing 2 yards." They have that invincible mindset, whereas Russ kind of knows where he's at, so he's going to make the safer throw, and it might not get you a first down, but he's going to get you positive yardage on the play because that's what he cares about most, keeping possession and keeping the ball moving forward. So that takes away a lot of the bravado and machismo that you see with a lot of those interceptions with the gunslinging type quarterbacks.
Okay, what about his leadership skills at this point? The Giants are obviously in a situation where they need someone who's going to command that huddle and try to get this team back to respectability. How was he in the locker room in Pittsburgh? I don't know what he was like in Seattle, but that's years ago. This is a different situation. At this stage of his
Yeah.
career, can he be more of a father figure, a big older brother, a mentor to a lot of these folks in the Giants locker room who, quite frankly, Max, don't really know a lot about experience of winning?
Yeah, I think he can because I think that's one of the things that for Pittsburgh, our situation, we were a super young team, a year ago, right? I mean, the oldest guy on our squad was going into his fifth year. Outside of the guys we brought in for 1 year, right? You had to take out the Van Jeffersons of the world that were there on a 1 year deal, or Cordero Patterson, right? They were still new. But for established guys, the oldest guy was a fifth guy that had been drafted there and been there since a rookie. So there was a leadership gap. And I think Russell was the one that came in and kind of stabilized those type of things and allowed them to focus more on the team. Now his skill set, you know what I'm saying, didn't command it, but his resume, his experience, and his consistency is something that I think when you're looking for that leadership, that's the first step in the building block, right? And then the next step is, of course, the actions on the field that get further buy-in. But I think he has that initial acceptance and novelty. These kids all saw, all the young guys on the team saw him win a Super Bowl as a young football fan. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they either grew up cheering or booing him because of how talented he was early on in his career, especially all the years that he was at Seattle. And he knows what playoff teams look like. He's been through a lot of them in his time in the NFL. So he's a guy that recognizes what the trends look like and what it takes to get to the playoffs and not only get into it, but actually win. And so I think that's a different mindset that's entering this locker room that hasn't been there for a while on the offensive side of the ball.
Max, could you sense, and I'm going to ask you to get into his head for a minute, and maybe that's unfair. And if you can't answer the question, I totally understand and respect it. Do you sense that he's just doing this to hang on a bit? Is it ego? Is it that he still has a competitive fire in him, that he still wants to win and he's driven and he's still working as hard as he can to, or maybe even harder to keep his body in shape so that he can compete at a high level? Everybody has a different reason for wanting to play another year. Are you able at all to discern that from being around him this past season?
Uh, I mean, I can only speak to what I've seen like on the field and at the practice field. And I think, obviously a lot of that's closed door conversation. That's the husband, wife, and family talk for a lot of those things. But I think when you see his why, the actions that I saw displayed there was a competitiveness. I mean, even when he was injured, and what did he get injured doing? He was doing the conditioning test while pushing a heavy sled on the field day one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a competitive fire there to be like the rest of the guys and do whatever it takes to gain their trust. But also, B, when he was injured, he was taking guys on the field in the evenings because, now the new training camp rules, you only get one practice a day and the other one has to be a walkthrough, that you can't even jog in. I know it's a crazy rule. Anyways, but because he was injured, he wasn't allowed to do anything in those drills. So he would take guys afterwards, group by group, tight ends one day, running backs the next, wide receivers, and he would work with them. And he would try and get to understand them to see what they like to try and make sure he could deliver. Since he couldn't physically go through the reps, he was mentally going through those reps with those guys and talking it out with those guys. And I think those leadership qualities. So that's a guy that still believes he can still do it and is trying to do everything in his power to prove it. Even when the physical's not there, the mental is still sharp. So take that as you will. I think that just shows that competitive nature. But at the end of the day, there is a certain level of ego involved with being a veteran in the NFL, right? You always think you can do it until they tell you can't. Like for me, even when my last year, 11 years ago, if you ask me right now, yeah, I can still do a 2-minute drill as long as it's in 2-point stance and there's no more than 4 plays. I got you. I still got that in me. So, Paul, if you talk about this offensive line stuff, I got 1 series left in me. We all have that bravado, right? But in the actuality, I mean, he's still proving it. He's still winning games, and he's winning, and they're winning because of him, not in spite of him in those games, right? And I think that's kind of the discerning mark because we saw the precipitous fall of a Peyton Manning, right? We knew the arm could not throw the ball past 10 yards. We saw him just trying to hold on and trying to, keep that last bit of valor to him. John Elway, when he admitted his retirement, we think of those guys where they couldn't do it. He still has a physical gift and skill set that he could still get the ball 40, 50 yards down the field on a beautiful rainbow just drop shot into your front shirt pocket. He still has that capability. So I think there's going to be a certain level of it, but I think for the most part, he still has a skill set that can be attributed to victories in the NFL.
See, that last comment you just made, Max, I think will make the Giants wide receivers room and the tight ends room very happy because it sounds like he still has what it takes to make those guys better, specifically Malik Neighbors, who, in all honesty, didn't get enough yards after the catch last year. They didn't get enough of big plays. Russell Wilson's the kind of guy who can get those.
Yeah, no, I think he still can, and I think Malik Neighbors with his separation skill and his technical route running is going to be a big asset to him. Now I call college football, so I've seen a lot of Malik Neighbors the last 2 years of his collegiate career, and watching him and Brian Thomas work together with Jaden Daniels, a thing of beauty. And I think when you pair him, especially with a guy like a Jalen Hyatt. You can get some great combinations. If he can get a step on a receiver, Russell can deliver the ball in a place where that receiver can take advantage.
All right, so summary here, Max. It sounds like you believe the Giants have taken a very large positive step in being competitive again because Lord knows that quarterback's room up until this deal, which is apparently about to be finalized, it did not look very good. But it sounds like you're going to give Giants fans some hope.
Yeah, once again, measured hope. Think 500. Think of getting up above where you were. And listen, who knows? We all know stranger things have happened, right? We've seen how teams can sneak into these playoffs. I don't think you're going to get a Minnesota, Detroit 14-3 type of deal this year that's going to knock a lot of wild card teams off, but you could be still competitive in December.
Max Starks, former offensive lineman in the NFL for many years, now the radio analyst with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can hear him on Sirius XM NFL radio. Max, anywhere else people can catch your stuff? It's a chance for a free plug because you have given us so much of your time tonight.
The only other place, if you're in Arizona, I work for 98.7 FM. So, I just run the gamut. ESPN, I call the radio games for college on Saturdays. And when the Steelers aren't playing on Sundays, I'm usually doing an NFL game for them. So I'm all over the place when it comes football season. All you have to do is just turn on a stream, a satellite radio or something, and you'll be fine.
And your Twitter handle, in case people want to read what you're posting?
Max Starks 78 on Twitter, X, however you want to call it.
There you go. Max, thank you so much. Let the little ones get some sleep now after the homework. And maybe give them a lollipop in the morning if they finished up.
My youngest is walking in right now, so she's probably listening and enjoying that phrase right now.
Well, my goodness, all I can say is, my friend, it has been a great pleasure, and I'm glad we finally got a chance to talk. And Again, thank you so much for your time.
Nah, my pleasure, Paul. You have a good evening.
You too. Max Starks joining us tonight on the Big Blue Breakdown. It has been such a pleasure to talk to him. I've listened to him on Sirius XM NFL radio so many times and just never had the opportunity to ever work with him or to ever speak to him before. And when this Russell Wilson news broke about an hour before, it was around 7 o'clock-ish Eastern time, I said, you know what? I talked to the people, Patricia Train over at New York Giants on SI. I said, hey, we got to mobilize. We got to do something. And I knew that because of the connections that I have through Lexi and Sirius, that we'd be able to try to get Max Starks. And who better to talk about what Russell Wilson has left and what he can bring the New York Giants than get a guy who played the game, was a lineman, knows all about offense, and obviously was giving us a realistic viewpoint of what the Giants can be. And as he said, you could be looking at a 500 team this year. That's the difference that Russell Wilson makes to the Giants quarterback room. Oh, we got another hit here from the Big Moo. And thank you 2.0 to the Big Moo for chiming in with another super chat star. And thank you so much, my friend. I do appreciate that. Most importantly, guys, we've now been here for a little bit over a half hour. I don't know how long we're going to take the show tonight. I really don't, because we were supposed to do a show on our regular Wednesday night time at 8 o'clock. That's when we usually do the Big Blue Breakdown. Folks, if you're not familiar with the program, we take chats. You can go to the link here that's right underneath the screen, and that will tell you all about, it'll give you the link that you need to use to join with a phone call or a video call. We are here every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, but this is a special breaking news live edition because the New York Giants have reportedly, pending a physical, reached a one-year deal with veteran Super Bowl and 10-time Pro Bowl quarterback Russell Wilson, which changes the entire complexion of what I think they will do in the draft and also changes the entire outlook for the football Giants this year. All right, let's go to some of your chats because you guys have been chatting up, but I wanted to make sure that we got our premier guest. I couldn't think of a better guest to have on to give you the lowdown on Russell Wilson than Max Starks. Mr. 2K says, this works out and gives us more options at 3. Well, you're talking about the draft pick. There's no doubt in my mind, if you're the New York Giants, especially after this move, you're taking the best defensive player at number 3. It's Travis Hunter. It's Abdul Carter. It's whichever one of those two guys are left. And if both of them are left, then you got to go to your medical people. You have to ask them about Abdul Carter's foot, what they think his durability is going to be, what his longevity is going to be on that foot, and you're going to let them kind of direct you as to how they feel about that, and then you make your decision. I've been talking up Travis Hunter for the Giants at number 3 since the Combine, okay? I have been. I'm still kind of, for me, I'm in the Travis Hunter camp. I would take Travis Hunter. He can help you out in the secondary. He can help you out at wide receiver with an explosive addition to the offense. Because of that two-way capability, I'm still in the Travis Hunter camp. I think the Giants, and I don't like to predict what the team will do, I think the Giants might lean to Abdul Carter if he's available at 3, and their medical team says, thumbs up, green light. I think they might go there because it does look like the Giants, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, they understand the value of the trenches, the big guys, the front 7 on defense. I think there's a tiny preference that way. But if it were me, especially with the foot consideration, and I suspect there is going to be a yellow flag there. I don't know that, but when you hear it at the Combine, And Carter said he had never experienced any problems, and all of a sudden the medics at the combine discover that he's got a stress hot spot in his foot, which is a weakness in the bone. When you hear that, it gives you cause for concern. You know, look, you guys remember Ahmad Bradshaw, right? Great Giants running back. 1,000-yard seasons, helped them win 2 Super Bowls. Weeks and weeks and weeks at a time, he could not even practice because he had troubles with the bones in his feet. He had them coming out of Marshall. And so they would have to say, okay, just do the walkthrough on Saturday, watch what's going on from the sideline during the week, and then just play on Sunday. I've often talked to Ahmad about it and said, if you didn't have trouble with your feet, how much better would your career have been? And he knows it would have been even more spectacular. The Giants are happy with what they got. 2 Super Bowl rings with Ahmad Bradshaw as part of that running back core. But it is a problem. Jeremy Shockey had a stress hotspot in his foot. They wound up having to put a screw in, and it became an issue. It became an issue. So, you know, later in his career, he wasn't quite as dynamic as he had been. Of course, he was also traded to the New Orleans Saints as well. But foot injuries are significant. Again, the medical team checks off and gives him a green light. I couldn't blame the Giants if they took Carter. I could not. I could absolutely see it. Because if the injury is not a factor, he is a blue chip prospect. Just like Travis Hunter, those 2 guys are the 2 best, highest graded players in this draft. I don't think there is any doubt in my mind about that. So if you get either one, especially if Carter's healthy, you can't go wrong. All right, I really would love to get to more of these chats, but C. Webb Sr. is on. And let me get to him. There you are, C. Webb. How you doing, my man? One of our regulars.
Hey, how you doing, Paul? Hanging in there.
I'm doing great tonight. How are you?
Just interested with the news breaking. It's an interesting day, and I love the move as they kind of, I think, Joe Shane, this front office have admitted their faults, learned that they're ready to build this team around. So when it comes time that they have conviction of quarterback, that this is ready. We're ready to go. And I think a lot of the fans may feel upset hearing Max earlier saying 500, but I think this is the stepping stool to get to where we want to be long-term, and the right move to where we want to be long-term, to kind of have some consistency and stabilization with Russ and Jameis and continue to build the supporting cast. So when they insert the right guy, whoever that may be, long-term, he's in a much better situation that Eli was on the back half of his career. He's in a much situation than Daniel was in this for his career, and the guy has a shot.
See, Webb, the way I see it, and you know, again, I don't know how confident the draft gurus are when they say that there could be as many as 5 first-round quarterbacks in 2026. A lot can change between now and then, but if the only quarterback that you could really bang your fist on the table for is Cam Ward, and I firmly believe and have since the combine that the Titans are taking him.
There's no shot to even trade the house for him.
I don't think there's any way the Titans are moving out. You got to understand something, C-Web. There's something else in play here. The Titans are looking to build a brand new football stadium down there. Believe it or not, they're actually not very happy with their current stadium, even though it's not that old. And they've already got proposals all over the place about a new stadium. Well, one of the things that you want to do if you're going to be building a new facility, you obviously want to get public favor. You want to get public excitement, which encourages the public favor. Drafting a quarterback number 1 is a good way to do that. And you also want to be able to get sponsorship money. And you want to get commitments from private enterprise and public enterprise to help push along the construction and the money and the commitment for the new building. This happens very, very often with franchises when they know that they're going to be in a situation such as this. It's not just about football. It's also
Right.
about
Business.
the business of the franchise. People forget that an awful lot of times. They forget that it is a business. And there are a lot of business decisions that get calculated into the final how do the Titans sell to their fans in their current situation as they're trying to get a new stadium or attempting to, in the process of doing that? How do you sell trading out the number 1 pick? I don't think you can sell that. No matter what you get for it, I don't think you can sell that, especially when you have Will Levis as your starting quarterback and you have a chance to get Cam Ward, who,
well, like our owner said, patience, selling patience to the fan base, even though they've been bad, we need to wait longer.
well, because here's the thing, right? Ward, while not necessarily graded as the best player in this draft, he certainly has some upside, and he certainly is the best QB in this draft, and he has shown the ability to make some very exciting plays and been extremely productive in college. I think that the Tennessee Titans fan base and the business community is going to be very energized, not to mention their football team, when they take Cam Ward number 1. I don't think there's a price they could get that would make them move off of that spot. I just don't. So once you move him out of the equation, well, now you look at the rest of the quarterbacks. I think Jackson Dart is probably moved up into the late first round. Do you want to take a shot later on day 2, on a Tyler Shuck out of Louisville? I'd have no problem with that. I really wouldn't. Do you want to go after McCord from Syracuse? You know, Will Howard had a really tough combine, but he had a great playoff with Ohio State. Would you want to take a shot at him? Maybe 3rd round or 4th round. I think, C-Web, that's the way the Giants are set up right now. I think if I'm them, I go with
flexibility.
Wilson. I go with Wilson. I go with Winston as the number 2. And then DeVito's either my 3, or I take a quarterback later on in the draft. But that guy, in order for it to make sense, that guy's got to be someone who you believe is
Long-term
better than Tommy DeVito. Because
and can eventually grow into that backup role.
Yeah, you're only going to keep 3 quarterbacks on your 53. So that guy's got to be better than DeVito, otherwise you wasted the pick. So is that a McCord? Is that a Shuck? Is that a Howard? You know, is it one of those kinds of guys that you might be able to get on day 2 or day 3? And if you take one of those guys, not only are you saying, well, he's better than DeVito now, but he has much more upside. If we work with him over the course of the next year or 2, maybe that project can develop into something more. I would not be against the Giants taking a quarterback on day 2 or day 3 if it were me. Again, I always tell you folks on this program, I tell you what I would do. This is working out exactly how I would have planned it. I don't know what the Giants are going to do, but so far they've been in step with the blueprint that I've had. I originally thought they were going to go for a tier 2 quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo. But once they decided that they were going to go to tier 1 and the Rams pulled Stafford off the market, well, then I said, they are going tier 1. Well, if they're going to shop in tier 1, then Russell Wilson's is got to be primary plan A. And that is exactly how it's worked out.
A little bit later than we thought.
And you know what, C-Web? Here's the other thing. When people moan about, a move like this, here's what they need to understand. The Giants won 3 games last year. Like Max Stark said, this is about, you can't expect from
Go
3
from 3 to
games.
15 or 3 to
Right,
12.
you can't do that. This
It's
is
just
about
a climb.
gradual steps. The Giants need to get back to respectability. Russell Wilson brings that. That's the point of this. That's the point of this move.
No,
Not to
knowing what
mention
we
that
know
they have.
now,
Not to mention they have 5 picks in the first 105. Think about that. How much
that's
talent
huge.
can you add in those first 105 picks?
This could be 2009 all over again.
Let's just say that the Giants have already done quite a bit in free agency. As you know, either their own guys or new guys. They've signed over 15 players, or at least agreed to deals. Some of their own, some outside. So they've
Looking
been
forward to
shaking.
Javon Holland. How do you feel about that move, knowing we let go of Xavier McKinney? I think it looks great now, bringing Javon Holland for a better price point, but still the same production.
Well, look at it this way. As a result of the McKinney move to Green Bay and the contract he signed, they wound up getting an extra 3rd-round pick, a compensatory pick out of that. Yeah. So in effect, it was McKinney for Howard and a 3rd-round pick. Let's see who that 3rd-round pick it turns out to be.
Yeah.
What if it turns out to be Tyler Shuck and he becomes your quarterback in the future? I mean, who's to say? We don't know. We don't know. But, hey, bottom line is, C-Web, the Giants are a much better team now than they were a month ago.
Agree.
That's a fact.
How would you rate the needs if you're a GM, if you're Joe Shane right now, looking at this Giants roster going into the draft? How would you rank our top 5 needs by position?
Well, here's the beauty of it. They don't have to draft desperate anymore because they've enhanced the secondary. Specifically, they grab Holland and they grab the Debo. So they've got 2 legit corners now with Banks and a Debo. They know that Phillips is a legit slot. They've got 2 very legit safeties. So that's in good shape. Where do the Giants need help still? They need help along the defensive line. Defensive line for me.
Edge, yeah.
I'm okay with the linebacker spot. I think they need more help on the defensive line. They got to pair somebody with Dexter Lawrence. They need someone also to give Dexter Lawrence a little bit of a breather. When he comes out of a game, teams love to run up the middle because they know he's not there.
Do you think Mason Graham could be in play at 3?
I love Mason Graham, but how can you pass on Hunter or Carter? I think Mason Graham, for me, is my 3rd favorite player in this draft. But that doesn't mean you pick him at 3. If Carter and Hunter are there, you have to pick one of those 2 guys, I think.
Agree.
So I think they've got to go priority-wise. And again, it depends on the player grades, best player available. The Giants definitely need to draft defensive line help. I think at some point in this draft, they should take probably at least 2 defensive linemen. I would love to see them take an offensive lineman. I would love to see them take
interior offensive line or a tackle.
You know what? There are more guards in this draft than there are tackles. So they're probably going to wind up taking a guard. Okay? Remember, they also signed 2 veteran offensive tackles in free agency to potentially be the swing. So I think probably a guard, and I do think Evan Neal's going to cross-train at guard this year. I do think that's going to happen. I also think they need to, in my opinion, if it were me again, I would take a guy like Scatterboo, a bruising running back. I'd like to see a guy who just trucks people. When he gets the ball, lowers the boom, and gets the tough yardage. Not that the Giants' backs aren't tough. They are tough. They are physical. But there's nobody in that room who's really going to push the pile in a very difficult short yardage situation. Now, some people think that maybe they should go for a scat back. I've heard that too. Go add to the running back room with a scat back, a speed burner. I don't know. Dante Miller is still in the locker room. Last year he was on the practice squad. You remember the kid from Columbia?
Turbo. Yeah, Turbo.
Right? Turbo, who went to South Carolina. The Giants brought him in last year. He's stuck on the practice squad. maybe he's got some more development to do. Maybe he can help in that role. I know this. Despite the fact that Singletary's a tough runner, he's a bit undersized in terms of frame, but he's tough. For his size, he's a tough physical runner.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see them add a bruiser, a real banger in the running backs room.
As long as
To be
Singletary
honest, I
can figure out
probably
how to
wouldn't mind adding
hold
a
the football.
speedster at wide receiver either.
Let's hope Devin Singletary can protect the football.
I understand.
Yeah. But I'm with you.
Anyway, Sid Webb, I appreciate it. Is it okay if I let you go and try to get to
You're
some
good,
of these
man.
chats?
All
I've had
good.
people over here for about an hour.
Appreciate your time, man. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Hey, great for finding us tonight. Thank you. I did this on short notice, and I didn't know how many people would find the program or how many regulars would be able to latch on. So thank you for sticking with me.
Absolutely, my man.
You're a good man. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Be good. See you later.
You too. Okay, always love talking to C. Webb. Always. All right, so we go through our chats, and I know, folks, I got almost an hour's worth of chats here to go through. We've got over 1,000 live people on the program right now. Again, folks, if you're joining us late, at about, I guess it was about 15 minutes in, go back to the archive. At about 15 minutes in, we had a 20-minute conversation with Steelers radio analyst Max Starks, the former offensive lineman, who gave us a complete breakdown on Russell Wilson, what he is and what you can expect from him as he makes his way to the New York Giants. I do suggest, because he knows better than anybody, I do suggest you go back and listen to that portion of the program. All right, let me get caught up on these chats because I have so many of them that people have been typing out, and I appreciate you guys so much for being able to find the program on such short notice tonight. Big Blue says, good evening. With the third pick in the 2025 draft, the New York Football Giants select, well, Paul Dottino selects Travis Hunter. Again, I think it will be Hunter or Carter if I am going to go out of my comfort zone and predict what the Giants will do. I think it will be Hunter or Carter. More likely Carter if he passes the medicals. I've said that 1,000 times. You'll probably hear me say it 1,000 more times in the last month. So far, though, the Giants seem to be very congruent with the way that I would have planned out the offseason. And that's really cool. That always makes somebody feel good when you plan something out and then the team kind of goes with that plan. Aiden Fink says, let Russ cook. The Big Moose says, hi, Paul. We got 2 quarterbacks for the price of 1. Not so bad. Well, yeah, consider the Giants have dead cap money between 20 and 25 million for Daniel Jones this year. And if the reported number for Russell Wilson is about 21 mil, well, there you go. There you go. The Giants are spending in the low 40s to mid 40s for their, quote, starting quarterback. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you construct the team's salary percentages and say how much are they devoting to each position under the cap, that's what you got. And then you also threw in an experienced guy in Jameis Winston, who reportedly is coming in at even less than they paid Drew Lock last year. This is really coming together. Joe Shane has really followed a very smart and logical blueprint. And he's got the Giants in a position where they're going to surprise some people this year in terms of their competitiveness. I'm not ready to say they're making the playoffs. I'm with Max Starks. I think the Giants can be hovering around 500 the whole season. And I know the schedule looks to be very daunting and very difficult. But there's a lot of other national people, real football people, like Bill Polian and Pat Kerwin, who have said many times they think the Giants are much closer to being competitive than a lot of people think because they just look at that 3 wins from last season. And they don't really realize that the Giants were not your typical 3-win stinkeroo team. They were a better team than that, than their record indicated. Scott Young says, I love the Wilson pickup. Good move by the Giants. Now we can do whatever we want in the draft. John Morano says, I like it. The Big Moose says, now we can take whoever we want at number 3, Travis Hunter, or trade down. Paul, your thoughts? I told you what I'm doing, man. I'm making the pick. Jim Schmeidenberg, I believe. He didn't go to Duke. That's a plus. No, Russell Wilson did not go to Duke. You are correct. New York Giants Maven, that's part of the network that we use. Again, they're saying if you'd like to join the show, you can call us up with a video call, you can call us up with an audio call, or you can be part of the chat. We're over 1,000 live viewers right now on the program. So glad you could join us tonight on a big breaking news night where the Giants have reportedly agreed, pending a physical, to a deal with veteran quarterback and 10-time Pro Bowler Russell Wilson. Tudo sends out some greetings to the Big Moo and Aiden. Mysterious One says, Paul, bada bing, bada boom. We have a quarterback room. Hello. Hi to you, Mysterious One. Big Moo says, Tudo, my brother, hope you're doing well. We always love to. I just can't get over the fact that Tudo from across the pond actually was able to pick us up on this breaking news program. Again, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is our regularly scheduled show. We're just doing a special show here because of Russell Wilson tonight. All right. Mysterious One says, Tudo is the man and Paul is dynamite. Boom! We're exploding. We're exploding with energy tonight with breaking news. How great is it, folks, that you're all going to be able to put the quarterback puzzle to bed? The final piece of the quarterback puzzle has finally arrived. And you could take that, what do they call that stuff? That paste or that glue. After you're done with a puzzle, it's like 1,000 pieces. You put the last piece in, and then you take that glue or that paste, and you spread it all over the puzzle, and then you let it dry, and now you have the beautiful puzzle completed, and you can hang it up on your wall. Well, the glue can finally be applied tonight, folks. It can, well, pending a physical and getting the deal signed, get the glue ready. I won't say apply it yet, but get the glue ready. Because the Giants quarterback situation is really coming together. Mysterious One says, I'm glad we didn't let Rodgers run our front office. We dropped him a deadline and said we're moving on. Kind of sad that Rodgers didn't even visit the Giants and spend all his time in Pittsburgh. Telling. Let's keep going. James O'Keefe. The Giants will not be drafting hungry. We were starving at quarterback. We can now take best player available at pick 3. James O'Keefe, that was the entire idea. That was the blueprint that I had drawn up. That was the blueprint that the Giants had drawn up. And that's the blueprint that they are executing. Mysterious One says 36 years old for Russell Wilson. 4-0 at MetLife and even won a Super Bowl in the stadium. That, of course, against the Denver Broncos. I covered that Super Bowl for CBS Sports Radio and WFAN in New York. That was a complete dominant performance. I believe, as I recall, Bruno Mars had a spectacular halftime show that day as well. The Focus says, I am so happy. I was a fan of Wilson before he was a Giant, and now he is a Giant. And I really think he's going to pair well with Winston. I feel this is probably the end of DeVito with the Giants. Well, the Focus, if the Giants do draft a second or third day quarterback, yes, that's likely going to be the case. If they decide not to draft a second or third day quarterback, or, again, I always think there's a possibility they could go up into the first round and get a Jackson Dart late in the first round. Pending that happening, right, it changes DeVito's complexion. There's no question about that, because you're not keeping 4 quarterbacks on your active 53. You're just not going to do it. Panasema, I suppose, says Mysterious, you're speaking facts. Fantasy Wise says, I want Carter. And again, I won't have a problem with that. I could understand drafting Carter. I'd want to see his medicals first, though. And I believe Penn State's Pro Day is on Friday. Let's see how he checks out there and what he does. This is a guy whose game is based on quickness and explosion, getting off at the line of scrimmage to get after the quarterback, which means he's putting a lot of pressure, an awful lot of pressure, and it's quick acceleration pressure on his feet. I hope, as a football fan, that his feet check out okay and that there is minimal danger of him having problems with his feet, because this guy could be a great dynamic player in the NFL who will give us many, many highlights as an NFL fan to watch, whether it's for the Giants or somebody else. I love the game. I love to see superstars who give us quality play. We would be robbed as NFL fans if after Carter's career at Penn State, he gets sidetracked by a foot injury and does not give us highlight after highlight after highlight to watch. So fantasy-wise, that is a concern of mine right now. Let's see what the medical people say. Panasema, again, I'm sorry. I just don't know exactly how you want us to pronounce that. But Russ will do fine with the team he rooted for as a kid. David G says, Hunter and Leak are going to be hot. He's obviously thinking that Malik Neighbors as wide receiver 1 can get a pairing with Travis Hunter in some wide receiver sets. Giants also have Wan'Dale Robinson. They have Darius Slayton back. They got a couple other receivers that they've also got brought back on the depth chart. Theo Johnson, the tight end, obviously has receiving skills. Russell Wilson's going to have people to throw to now. I wouldn't mind maybe getting another burner, because we got to find out what Jalen Hyatt's all about, right? We got to find out. It's time for Jalen Hyatt to break out. I can't tell you enough about this kid. He's a pro. He's got great work ethic. He's incredibly respectful and polite. He's eager to learn. He busts his butt all off season, and yet he wasn't doing enough to become a bigger part of their game plan. And then when he did get in, we didn't see enough production on the field. It's a mystery to me, the first 2 years of Jalen Hyatt. Year 3 has to be a breakout for him. If he can break out, all of a sudden, the Giants are going to be in much, much better position. Isaac Moore says, let's go Danger Russ. Fantasy Wise says, draft a quarterback next year. I've got no problem with that, my friend. Mark B says, still draft a quarterback, get a rookie in that room. Again, I got no problem with that either. I would do it later on, as opposed to number 3. Mark B says, Scatterboo is a beast, him and Tyrone in the backfield. So you like that, huh? You like that, Mark B? I hope so. That would be sweet. Isaac Moore says, get Carter, trade Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't think that's in the cards. I do think the Giants will pick up his 5th-year option. Isaac Moore says the Lions want him. And Elo H says, really cool tidbit. Russell Wilson becomes the first athlete to be associated with both the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. One more chat here. And Elo H says, it's nice to hear you say positive things about Hyatt, especially the respectful and polite part, since there are a lot of rumors about his unhappiness, but like to see him work out. Well, you know, here's the thing, and I'm going to get to Aiden in a second because I see he wants to get in on a video call. We have over 1,100 live viewers on the show. Hey, welcome to the program. We love having you. The thing about Hyatt is this. Everybody in that wide receiver room should get better just because Russell Wilson has tremendous experience, knowledge, and leadership skills. and throws an awesome deep ball. That by itself should raise the level of play of the wide receivers on this Giants roster. So we got to see. We've got to see. Isaac Moore says they traded up to get Hyatt and can't get him reps. I know, it is a mystery. Hey, let's go to Aiden.
Hey,
Aiden, how are you, my man?
I'm good. So, funny thing, I missed Big Blue kickoff today, and I was listening to the archive, and then suddenly I see the alert that we signed Russell Wilson.
What did I say on the show today?
You think you're like, I think the Giants are going to end up with Russell Wilson, and you were right.
Been saying it for weeks upon weeks on a time. So I appreciate you checking out the daytime program. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. And I remember when I asked you about how I think you're about your past success with like free agents and stuff, and then you said today you think the offseason went as planned so far based on the Giants' needs and what you think they needed to do.
Well, Aiden, they've set themselves up now, as one of our people on the chat room said earlier, and it's true. General managers don't want to go into the draft hungry/desperate. That's never a good idea, because then what happens is that you wind up reaching for a guy and you diminish what's on the board. You diminish the grades, and you diminish all the hard work that your personnel people put in during the course of the last couple of years trying to figure out what these players should be evaluated at. Because all of a sudden now you say, oh my God, we've got to fit it. We've got to fill that hole. I know that the board says he's really not the guy. I know he's not the best player available. I know that there are other guys we absolutely should take, and they're going to help us with depth. They're going to help us make bigger plays. They're going to push somebody who is already starting at that position. They're going to give us young, healthy, youthful, and economic-friendly talent. But, oh man, we need to fill a hole at this other spot, and it's driving me crazy like poison ivy, and I'm going to have to reach. And what happens is you then bust your own rules, and you wind up being hungry, and you reach for something that you know you shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. And the Giants have now set themselves up so that does not have to happen. That's why Joe Shane has done a good job during this offseason.
Yeah, now it's just I think we got everything we can for now in free agency, because I feel like, like the top guys are off the board, and now it's like the lower tier. So I think now it's about the draft.
Well, here's the thing. You look at this team and you realize that, number one, they're still pretty young. I know Wilson's 36.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. Now, reportedly, it's only a one-year contract. Mm-hmm. So clearly, even though they're looking at him as the starter, he is a bridge. He is a bridge.
Yeah.
Because they know that as soon as next year, they're going to have to get a young guy. If not in the second or third day of this draft, they're still going to have to get a young guy. So this doesn't solve anything long term. It really doesn't.
No.
But what it does is it gets the boat out of the muck. Okay? The boat has been mired in the muck, or stranded on Gilligan's Island, if you will. And they're getting the boat back into the water so that they can move forward. That's what this is about. Joe Shane made it very clear, Aiden. He said the Giants want to be competitive and win games this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you definitely have to draft a quarterback. I mean, what is it? How do you even have a guy on a 1-year contract? I mean, then you have I mean, Winston would be the backup, and he's on a 2-year deal, but you don't know about your future. You have to have. I think you have to bring somebody in, even if it's like a fourth rounder.
Well, the beauty of it is that the Giants have 8 draft choices, and they've got 5 in the first 105.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got capital. They've got draft choices where on that second or third day, they've got a host of picks, and they can take one of those second level project rookie quarterbacks who can sit in the room and hopefully learn something from the veterans who are going to be on the roster this year. That's the beauty of it. That's why, again, my blueprint is that's what they do. You don't have to take one at number 3 now. Absolutely not. You don't have to do that.
No, get one of those top defensive guys.
Exactly.
So
keep building this defense. Make this defense as good as it can be.
Yeah. So personally, what would you do in terms of drafting a quarterback in this year's draft after, like now, because we have Russell Wilson?
Well, look, if they feel like they've got to get, let's say they feel that Jackson Dart is a legit guy that they really, really like. I wouldn't have a problem with that. I like Jackson Dart myself. I think he's a second round pick who's probably going to go late in the first round. So if they had to make a deal and swap some picks to get up there to get him, I would totally understand that. That would make sense to me. The other thing that makes sense to me is that you simply just wait until the second round, see what's there. If you don't like it, let's say Dart's already gone, okay, fine. Take a defensive tackle at the top of the second round. I'd be great with doing that. And then you get to the third round, and now, at the top of the third round, if I wanted to take a project quarterback, that's probably the sweet spot for me. If you can get a Tyler Shuck out of Louisville there, or maybe you wait to the end of the third round and you got that other pick at 99, right?
Yeah.
Maybe at 99, you take a Will Howard, or you take a McCord out of Syracuse. You take one of those guys, And remember, the end of the third round to the beginning of the fourth round, there's not much difference there because the Giants are picking high right up near the top of the fourth round. So somewhere between 99 and 105, or is it 104? I'm forgetting right now where their fifth pick is. It 104 or is it 105? I'm going to take a look right now, real quick. I'm going to take okay, here we go. Is it 104 or 105? That fourth round pick is 105. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So between 99 and 105, you have 2 selections within the span of 7 picks. To me, if you wanted to take a project quarterback, not a prospect, but a project quarterback, which means a lower tier, that's a great spot to do it.
And like you said about that, it has to be somebody who's better than DeVito.
Correct. And if you don't think they are, and they don't have legitimate potential to be better than him, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Then just don't do it. Let him be the number 3, and then worry about getting a quarterback next year. I can understand that too. I think that's also an option.
And let's say you take somebody in the second or third round. Look, Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. Jameis is obviously going to be the backup. Are you okay with the rookie not seeing the field at all season, because they would be the third string?
I'm sorry, Aiden. I lost you for a second. I was getting a message on my other machine.
All good. Yeah, I was asking if you take someone in the second or third round, are you okay with the rookie completely sitting and taking no snaps all season?
1,000%.
Because I was thinking, like, I feel like it's important, even if they're getting, like, it's a blowout. I feel like they should get some. But
Well, that's okay. Sure. Why?
I mean, you'll get the.
Yes.
I
In a
mean,
blowout situation, it's not a bad idea to get it, but you don't go into the season thinking blowout situations. In
no.
theory,
I
I redshirt. Any rookie quarterback that I take, in theory, he redshirts. And the only
Yeah.
way he gets snaps is if he's taking the last drive of a blowout game. Get his feet wet. Let him go into the kiddie pool, right?
Yeah.
Just have the water come up to his ankles, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I think they should see the field just a little bit. I mean, obviously things could change with the depth chart if somebody got hurt, but besides that, I mean, the only time they'd see the field probably is in preseason.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? And Aiden, that's fine. Again, I've explained all the different scenarios. You go up, you get Dart in the first, you take one on the second day or third day. The plan is they sit, they redshirt, or you don't take one at all. There are 3 different scenarios here, and I, if I'm drawing the blueprint, all 3 of those are okay. They all make sense to me. But you gotta see how the draft plays out. You have to have options. You have to have options in your head. Aiden, let me go. I got another video call. Let me try to get this other guy in.
Yeah, I'll catch you in the chat.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yep.
Be good. All right, let's see here. We got another one. David P. wants to come on the program. David, welcome to the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Thank you so much.
Paulie D, can you hear me all right?
I got you fine.
What's going on, brother? I appreciate you doing this, man. Yeah, I just want to say that, well, so a couple things. Number one, this couldn't have been when Shane and Dable went to Mara at the end of the season. Russell Wilson couldn't have been the plan in the grand scheme of things. It feels like they pivoted a couple times, obviously from Stafford, but I think that this, for them, in order to make sure that Shane's job is secure, he's got to draft a quarterback at some point in this draft. He's got to, because if he doesn't come into this draft or out of this draft with a quarterback, how do you sell the Mara if there's another losing season? Well, hey, we've got our guy, or we don't have our guy. I think they have to walk away with somebody from this draft.
I agree that I would lean towards either getting Dart near the end of the first round by moving up, or taking a guy on the second or second, third, no later than the 4th round, but only if a quarterback who they think is a legitimate project falls to their spots.
But let's say that there isn't.
David P., just don't take one to force one. You can't do that.
But then, let's say we get another 3 to 6 win season. At that point, Shane and Dable are gone. They're absolutely gone. But if there's a quarterback, even if it's one that, hey, we think this guy could be okay, then I think they can sell the Mara. Hey, listen, we've got our guy that we want to work on. You follow?
Well, I don't want to speak for ownership, because that would not be appropriate. But here's what I will say to you: if the team doesn't do well, right? If they don't do well, the quarterback that they take may not be the guy that the new folks who come in are going to want.
For sure.
So there is a danger in doing what you're saying. If you take a project quarterback, the team has another terrible record, and the franchise decides to make changes. Well, now you're bringing in a new administration, and you're telling them, okay, Russell Wilson was on a 1-year deal. He's going away. You've got Jameis Winston potentially in the 2nd year of his deal. You may or may not have Tommy DeVito, although if you're taking a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th round, you've got him instead of DeVito. And the new coaching staff and the new GM is going to say, well, what do we want him for? We want to go out and get our own guy.
And I think all the more reason for Shane to pick up a quarterback, even if it's somebody that's on the fence for him, in the draft. Again, a late round, pick.
As long as the value matches the spot.
Fair.
Again, I'm okay with that. If let's say they've got Will Howard graded as a top 100 player. If they take him at 99, that makes perfect sense.
Agreed. 100%. Agreed.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. If
But
they think that Tyler Shuck is number 65, then they should take him at 65.
But I think I totally agree with you 100%. But let's say Taylor Shuck is 120, and they're like, let's roll the dice and pick him up at 65. Like, I think that they might do that. I still think that they're a little bit hungry for that quarterback, a little bit, and they might, overreach a little bit in the draft. Just
let's put it this way: if they had to inch a little bit up, I would say this: I would not reach for the prospect quarterback or the project quarterback. I'm sorry, the project quarterback. I would not reach for that guy at the top of the second round, and I don't even think I'd be very iffy about doing it at 65. I'd be more likely to do it at 99 or 105. Those are the two spots where I think the sweet spots are for the project quarterback. I think if Shuck or Howard or McCord or Leonard, whoever it is, if they've got a guy who's right in the vicinity of 65, fine. I'd have no problem. I could make that move. I could take him. But I can't take a guy who's rated 95 at 65. I can't do that. That's drafting hungry.
I agree with you. I'm on board with you. I just think that this administration might do that. But and I apologize, I'm jumping on a little bit later here. Have you discussed it all? I mean, obviously the topic of the conversation is Russell Wilson for sure. Do you feel, is it your sense, Paul, that the Giants do they feel pretty good about their offensive line, particularly right guard? How do you feel that? What is your sense on that?
They think right now that they've got enough of quantity that they're going to be able to sort through it. Joe Schoen has told us several times last year. He did it at the bye, and then he told us again at the end of the season. He reminded us that in the first 6 weeks of the season, the Giants had an upper half offensive line in the league. They actually were, by anybody's metrics. They were in the top half of the league with their offensive line.
When they were healthy.
Andrew Thomas got hurt, and then all of a sudden things started going downhill. But they were actually I don't know if you ever want to use the word satisfied, but let's just say that they were digesting what they believed was a functional, which is the word I love to use. They were digesting with a functional offensive line the first month of the season until things crumbled. And as usual, injuries bit them in the butt and really started to hack away. Now, they've added some linemen, specifically a couple of swing tackles. They've brought back guys like Van Roten. They've brought back Stinney. I think Van Roten, to me, is probably more of insurance for JMS at center. He did not have a great second season. He was inconsistent. He needs to take a big step in year number 3. But I think Van Roten is probably more insurance at center than he is going to be the starting right guard this year. I think they're hoping that the starting right guard, if it doesn't come from Izzudu or Stinney, I think the starting right guard could very easily possibly be Evan Neal, who I think is going to cross-train this year. And I think they believe he still has value. Or, as I've said, my draft plan for the Giants is at some point in the middle rounds, take an offensive lineman who has a good toolbox and a good skill set and has good traits. He may not have had great production in school, but give him to Carmen Brasillo. People forget David Deal was a 5th-round pick.
Yeah.
People forget Richie Seubert was an undrafted rookie free agent. And by the way, don't forget Jake Kubas, who was an undrafted rookie free agent guard this past year. The coaching staff loves that kid. So I do think the Giants will do enough, either based on what they've had now and maybe even add a young guy in the middle rounds. I think they're going to have enough of options where this line again, injuries, but I think they believe they've got enough in that room, or at least close to enough, where they should have enough options to hold up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally, I appreciate that, man. And it'll be so interesting to see what they do with Neil, man, because gosh, it's so frustrating to see a guy with such physical attributes, and what did he say? I was born to be a right tackle, right? Didn't he say that he came out of his mother's womb to be a right tackle?
I know, and he did play multiple positions at Alabama. But since he's been with the Giants, they wanted him to be the right tackle. They did everything they could to train him there, and injuries kept sidelining his progress. And then I think, to be frank with you, I think it played head games with him. When a guy who's been so successful at a program like Alabama under Nick Saban at a very, very high level gets to the NFL and starts getting hurt and starts to struggle and can't get on the field to improve himself, and then winds up having troubles because there are changes in offensive line coaches, and he's getting all confused and his head is spinning in 15 different directions. I understand the frustration this guy's gone through. He's been through a ton. This is a guy who had to be rebuilt from the inside out. And that's what Carmen Brasillo tried to do last year when he finally got healthy and said, look, he's working as a backup, and he's only working at right tackle. I believe the reason that the Giants did that is because they knew he had to be reconstructed from the head down. And they figured the best way to do that would be just stick him back at right tackle, let him slowly learn to get his own traits back, to gain his confidence back, and to start playing the kind of ball on the practice field that they thought he could play. I believe that Brasillo took a very measured approach with Neil. And now that he's got an off season where he's supposedly healthy, I think now you take it to the next step and you give him a chance to cross train and find out where he can best help the team. But until they got him squared away last year and tried to get him on the road to being rebuilt, there was no way you could change his position, because it was only going to damage his psyche even more.
Makes sense. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Let me ask you, and I apologize, and I'm spitfiring, questions off you.
It's okay. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So do you get a sense, man, if Dable's gonna give play calling back over to Kafka, or any feelings on that?
My gut feeling, based on the fact that both John Mara and Brian Dable came out after last season, and both of them, unsolicited, mentioned the fact that the play calling was something that was going to be considered. And then Brian Dable himself said he actually was the one who considered or mentioned it to John Mara in their postseason conversation. I think Brian Dable is seriously considering that. Now, much like last year during training camp and during the spring, we kind of saw what was going on in practice, but he didn't say anything and didn't make it official until way late when the season started. I expect that Brian will keep that decision close to the vest again this year. Whatever it is he decides, he'll keep it as close to the vest as possible, but we'll be able to watch practice and we'll figure out all the clues as to who's got the walkie-talkie, who's got the play sheet in their hands. We'll figure it out, and you guys will, all the fans will know about it. If you come to training camp, you'll be able to see what's going on, and it won't be that hard to decipher. But I'm sure that Brian Dable won't make any announcements about that until the very last minute.
Do you have any preference, Paul, like of who's calling plays? Do you think it's better in the hands of Kafka?
I have always believed, philosophically, because remember now, I just finished my 42nd season covering the team.
Wow, good for you, man.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah,
so I came up under Bill Parcells when he had Ron Earhart as his offensive coordinator.
Wow, that's awesome.
Tom Coughlin had John Hufnagel. Then he had Kevin Gilbride, and these are guys who won Super Bowls that way.
Yeah.
I've always preferred, personally, for a head coach to be a CEO. I know that a third of the coaches in today's NFL, a third of the head coaches call their own offensive plays. And guys like Sean McVay have won Super Bowls that way. Andy Reid won a Super Bowl that way. Okay? Nick Sirianni won a Super Bowl that way, right? Guys have done this. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. I know my personal preference because I've been doing this so long and I've had experience with coaches who won it while being a CEO. My personal preference is that the head coach be a CEO and has someone else call the plays. But that's something philosophically that I've stated since the beginning of time. That has nothing to do with Dable or Kafka personally.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, man, because there's so much going on to pay attention to the game to be able. I mean, I can only imagine how much pressure there is too, to be able to make sure you're calling the game right, calling the timeouts right, all of that to have to be worried about play calls as well. That's got to be challenging, man. So
I think it is. Now, I will say this again: there are guys who have won doing it.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that anybody is right or anybody is wrong. It's strictly like, do you like vanilla ice cream? Do you like strawberry ice cream? Do you like chocolate ice cream? I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. It has to be the preference of the coach, and he's got to have the guy in the system that he has trust in so that they are all on the same page and that they work like a finely tuned machine. If for whatever reason there is any kind of disconnect, then maybe those are situations where the head coach should call the plays. I understand. I think it's each individual situation.
Yep. Well, I'm going to jump here, but I'm going to leave you with one last question before I do, if that's all right, Paul.
Sure, please.
Do you see any major scheme changes on the of Cal Dable now with Wilson coming in the way that he plays? Is there going to be more play action? Are we going to see any type of any schematic changes, you think?
Well, if you joined the show late at about 15 minutes in, and I invite you to go back to the archive when it goes up, we had Max Starks on. Max Starks, longtime NFL offensive lineman, who is currently the radio analyst for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh, okay.
He gave us 20 minutes of the most detailed scouting report on Russell Wilson that you're going to find anywhere.
Sorry about that.
And that's okay. Please go. It's about 15 minutes into the show. It'll be on the archive as soon as the program is over. It'll be there. So go back and listen to that. In short, what we know about Russell Wilson is this. He's a terrific play-action quarterback. We know he still has rollout ability. While he's not as much of a runner as he was in Seattle, okay, he still has rollout and escapability by going horizontal out of the pocket. Brian Dable always liked that. That's part of what his DNA is, okay? We also know that Russell Wilson still throws an awesome deep ball. Now, that's something that hasn't been with the Giants a whole lot in the last several years.
Yeah, for sure.
There was that 1 year where Daniel Jones was the most effective in the league at throwing the deep ball. But then, of course, with a sporadic running game and a sporadic offensive line, the Giants got away from that. And then when they tried to do that a little bit with Daniel Jones this past year, it wasn't connecting very well.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest change you'll see in this offensive scheme this year is that the Russell Wilson moon ball, as they like to call it.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see that as installed as part of the playbook.
The fences. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, man. No, that's good. All right, brother. Well, hey, Paul, I really appreciate you letting me on and give me the opportunity to chat. Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you for coming onto the program, especially on short notice.
Yeah, thanks again, man. Thank you for doing this. Have a good night.
All right, you too now. David P. joining us on the program. How awesome is that? I love getting new people. I love getting new people. I love getting, there we go. Look at that. I am not the best guy in the world. I admit to that. Full-fledged. I am a yabba-dabba-doo Fred Flintstone type. Oh, my goodness. Let's see here. Okay. Let's take a look. What else do we have here in the chat? I'm gonna try to take this sucker till 10 o'clock, folks. We're gonna try to at least do a full 2 hours. If for some reason you guys get caught up with a couple of more phone calls, maybe we'll go a little longer. But I certainly want to take this to 10 o'clock. We've got almost 1,400 live viewers on the program right now. Again, to recap, you guys all know what the story is. Russell Wilson, pending a physical, reportedly has agreed to a 1-year deal with the New York Football Giants, finally completing their off-season quarterback puzzle. Okay? I just told our last caller who came in that Max Starks, radio analyst and longtime NFL offensive lineman, radio analyst with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, 15 minutes into the program, if you joined us late, go back to the archive. He gave us 20 minutes of detail, everything you want to know about what Russell Wilson can still do and bring to the Giants. It's all there. The bottom line is, he believes Russell Wilson has enough gas in his tank for another good season and should bring the Giants back to respectability. That's the bottom line. That's the reason why the Giants are making this move, because that's what they need to do. They need to get back to being competitive. They need to get back to respectability. Jim Bowe says, how long does it take for a project quarterback to be ready to start? It all depends on the individual. Sometimes it could take a year. Sometimes it could take 2. We've seen guys like Mahomes be on the bench for a year. We've seen Love with the Packers be on the bench for a bit. We saw Aaron Rodgers be on the bench behind Brett Favre. You know, we saw Steve Young, who went to the USFL and then wound up coming back and then was on the bench behind Joe Montana. It could be a year. It could be 2 years. It could be 3 years. You just never know. It all depends on the coaching. It all depends on the player's individual development. There's really no set answer to that. But I will always be in favor of redshirting that rookie quarterback his first year if you can possibly do it. Some situations you can't. And you're just stuck. And you got to throw that guy in. That's a situation I was hoping the Giants would avoid this year. Not having to force a quarterback at 3 and playing him right away. They don't have to do that now. They don't have to shop hungry. Thank you, Jimbo. Let's see, who else do we have here? Mikey C says, Joe Milton 3 is the missing link in the quarterback room. That best way to learn his second year, go big blue. Well, Mikey C, I don't think the Joe Milton situation that so many people, I don't know how many people, but there's certainly been a group of folks who have contacted this show or the Big Blue Kickoff Live show during the day. They've been in the Joe Milton camp. I don't see that happening now. I don't. Now, again, I'm not speaking for the Giants. I am part of the Giants official broadcast team, but I'm not speaking for them. Everything I say on this program is my own opinion, my own thoughts, based on knowledge and experience. I will not lie to you, and I certainly will not speak for the organization. That is not my role on this program. I personally don't see Joe Milton being a fit with what the Giants have constructed. And quite frankly, I don't think you could have gotten him for the song that you'd want to get him for anyway, for those people who wanted to make a deal. Aiden Fink says, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be significantly improved offense with Russ. What do you think the run-pass balance is going to be like? Aiden, I'm going to have to watch spring practice. I'm going to have to watch training camp. I hope that it's a balanced attack. I think that's the best way to go about it because Russell Wilson is at his best as a play-action quarterback. Remember, his best years in Seattle is when they were able to run the ball. So I would like to believe it's going to be a balanced mix that allows the play action to be effective. Aiden Fink says to Mikey C about Joe Milton, it was one game against backups, no question. Alex Smith says, let Russ cook. Give Two says, can you reach out to Charlie from Portland? Nope. Don't think I'll be doing that. C-Mac the Cable Guy. Winston can beat out Wilson if given a chance. I don't think there is any chance of that happening. Give Two said, I'd love to hear his negative thoughts on this signing? Well, I guess you're talking about the previous comment you made about the gentleman from Maine. No sense in going there. It just doesn't make no, it just doesn't make any sense to even talk about that. I'm sure he will call up the Big Blue Kickoff live show at some point next week. He's already had his one call for the week. He'll probably call up next week and have something that makes absolutely no sense to say. I'm sure of that. He actually tried to say this morning that it would make no difference between Wilson and Winston, as if these two guys have had similar NFL careers. Some things are just very laughable. Matthew Bauer says, at this point, got to go Hunter or Carter at 3. I'm totally on board with you, Matthew. And get a rookie later on the draft to sit behind and learn from Winston and Wilson. Trench building, best player available draft. Matthew, you've been listening to me on the program. That's all there is to it. I appreciate that very much. Mikey C., he have talent. I guess he's talking about Milton again. He can learn from vets, trade the pick back for more picks, and draft players that you can put on the field now. Hey, everybody can have an opinion. There's no right. There's no wrong. I'm simply telling you, if I were the GM, that would not be the way I would go. Alex Smith says, y'all got Russ. How about that? Aiden Fink comments, Daniel Jones was thrown in too quickly coming in week 3 his rookie year. I believe that too, Aiden. I do. I said that then. I did not think that Eli should have been taken out of the lineup. Excuse me. Glad we have an accomplished veteran, and there's a high chance they don't take the field once in 25. I'm not sure I totally understand what that means. Rusal Yasir Rakim Mohammed says, have we learned anything in the last 10 years? Draft a quarterback and offensive lineman. Okay. Mikey C says, trade Neal or Hyatt or even both for Joe Milton. Mikey C's not giving up. I appreciate your persistence, Mikey C. I'm not making that trade. MB Goblin says, with this signing, should definitely draft Carter or Hunter at 3. Should be a best player available trench building draft with a project quarterback later to sit behind and learn from the vets. Feeling good. Again, MB Goblin taking a page out of my playbook. Understood. Mikey C says, P. draft Carter or trade with Jags for Graham. Okay. Give 2 says, I'd like to trade down a few spots and take the defensive tackle from Michigan, and that would be Graham. Boy, do I love him. Mason Graham would be so perfect next to Dexter Lawrence. But again, he's a blue chip, but he's not a true blue chip like Hunter and Carter are. Those two guys have legit potential to be, all pros and 10-year starters. I love Mason Graham. It's going to hurt me to pass on a guy like that, but I would have to. For Carter or Hunter, I would have to do it. Aiden Fink says, meant to say that the rookie might not see the field in 25 because we have Russ and Winston. Yes, no question. The rookie shouldn't see. If they take a rookie quarterback, if I'm the GM, that rookie quarterback redshirts. He does not see the field unless there is a blowout situation and you just want to get him a few snaps. But remember, to do that, he's going to be the third quarterback on the 53. If you draft one, he'll be the third quarterback on the 53, which means he's going to be the inactive quarterback, which means, unfortunately, right, you're not going to be able to put him in because he's not going to be dressed. That's the problem. That's the problem with that plan, Aiden. In the olden days, you could have done that. But now with the way they have the inactives every Sunday, No, I should have said that to you before while you were on the video call. You're not going to be able to do that. If you draft a rookie and he's the third on the 53, he's not going to get a jersey. He's going to be inactive every week anyway. So he's not going to play. The only way he's going to get a chance to play is if you've got your playoff position locked up or locked out on the last weekend of the season, and you decide, okay, you know what? Let me see if I get him a few reps. Yeah, Aiden, I should have thought of that earlier. I was a little bit too wrapped up in what we're doing here to take a step back and to truly smell the aroma. Wasal Yasir Rakim Muhammad says, draft I guess he means Shador Sanders or Cam Ward, and stop drafting a quarterback in the second round. Just rebuild a team. It's not hard. It's actually very hard to rebuild a team. And no, I would not draft Sanders at 3. I believe Ward is going to the Titans at 1, so you're not going to have an opportunity to take him. Mikey C says, that'd be so sexy, Dexter and Mason Graham. I understand. I get it. Sean Jackson says, good evening, Paul. You got your wish. I knew you weren't sold on the young quarterbacks this draft. Giants can now go best player available at 3. P-Dot, you still prefer Hunter over Carter at 3. Sean, that's where I am. I've been that way since the combine. I'm still feeling that. Again, the stress issue in Carter's foot. Friday is the pro day for Penn State. We should hear an awful lot more about his physical well-being and what some of the teams and the medical people are saying. That word is going to leak out somehow. So, don't be surprised, right? I'm not saying I hope, because I don't hope. I hope Carter is fully healthy. And again, if I'm going to project, which I don't like to do, I could see the Giants taking Carter, a healthy Carter, or Hunter. I could absolutely see that. And I would not shake my head at it. But if Carter comes back with any issues in that foot coming up in the next month, pro day next week or any other time, it would be less attractive to taking him. Now, what happens if Ward goes first and Hunter goes second? Now, the question is, do you take Abdul Carter if he has a yellow flag on the foot? That becomes a very, very difficult deal to digest. It really does. Because you know what his upside is, or at least you think you know, but then you also could have that potential yellow flag for a foot injury, which could really derail things. That's why we're talking a lot of ifs and hypotheticals here. That's why, people take comments out of context. I almost hate to even talk about it because someone will take something out of context and said, well, that's what you said. Yeah, well, that's what I said today. When Penn State has not even had a pro day and we don't know what the updated medicals on Carter's foot are going to be. C. Webb says, Mikey C., what it do? How about that? Mr. Muhammad says, Saunders, or obviously Deion Sanders' kid, Shador Sanders, is ready to start day 1. That's your opinion. You're allowed to have one. Nobody's opinion is right or wrong as long as it's based on facts. I don't think anybody has enough facts to say whether he can start or not. Certainly, a great deal of people have an opinion that he is not. You have an opinion that he is. You're entitled to have it. Aiden Fink, if Russ gets benched, there's no chance you're skipping over to him over Winston like the Giants did with the veto when Jones was benched. No chance. He says, only a Davis Webb situation. Double R, what does Carter mean for Thibodeau? Well, Thibodeau's in a situation where I expect that the Giants, or at least I would, pick up his 5th-year option. He had a disappointing season in year 3, obviously. Inconsistent, a lot of good pressure numbers, but he didn't get home and finish off enough of plays. I think if the Giants improve their defensive line through the draft, it will give him a better chance to start finishing off plays like he did the year before when he had 11.5 sacks. I expect Thibodeau to have a breakout year. I thought he could do it last year, but then it just didn't work out. The line gave up too many rushing yards, and that in turn impacted their ability to get after the quarterback on pass rushing downs. The Giants were also playing from behind virtually the whole season. It seemed like every quarter, every game, they were playing from behind. That also impacts a pass rusher's effectiveness. So a lot of things worked against Thibodeau last year besides the fractured wrist that cost him over a month. A lot of things worked against him. I predict a big bounce back year for Thibodeau. Now, here's the thing. If you draft Carter, you now have 3 pass rushers in Burns, Thibodeau, and Carter. You know that you don't want your 2 edge guys to play 90% of the snaps, right? You know you don't. So if each of your starters, at least while Carter is a rookie, if each of your guys play 75 to 80, right? That's going to leave almost 40% of the snaps, or maybe even a little more, to Carter. So he will still get time to allow both guys to get some rest. Hopefully that also increases their efficiency. So there's nothing wrong with drafting Carter at 3. You'll find a way to work him in. Trust me, you will. There's no doubt about that. So I don't think it necessarily means anything for Thibodeau. Not right away. Now, it may down the line after he plays in his 5th year, and the Giants then have to figure out at that time, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep him? If you are, what's the price going to be? So there are variables here down the road. But in 2025, if you draft Abdul Carter, he's going to see significant time in the rotation, believe me. And it might wind up making all 3 guys with a high efficiency because they'll be able to give them occasional rests. Matthew Bauer says, would you still try to get depth with the cornerback safety room? Believe Asante Samuel Jr. is still available. I don't think that the kind of money that Samuel wants is going to be available with the Giants. I would be very surprised. I expect that Samuel's going to want a pretty good buck, and rightfully so. Very talented player coming out of the draft. I know he's had some injuries. I like him. I think he's a terrific player. I liked him very much coming out of the draft too. But no, I don't think the Giants are going to be in the market for someone of that nature. I would not be shocked if on the low end, as free agency goes on, if they were to add a lower priced veteran at corner or at safety. That would not surprise me. And that guy might even get a deal where he comes to training camp and maybe he doesn't even make the team. Because I could also see potentially at some point in the draft, the Giants take a shot at a guy who's got a good toolbox, a guy who has traits and skills. And again, may not have the production in college, but a guy who they think they may be able to get more out of. So I do think you will see the Giants add to the depth in the secondary at some point here, whether it's projects in the draft or, again, potentially a lower priced veteran free agent on the back end. That's how I see it. I don't think you're looking at any more big ticket items for the Giants in free agency. Heck, as it stands now, and of course, we don't have the information, the full official information on what Russell Wilson's deal will be when he signs. We know what's been reported online, and obviously we've got some faith in those numbers because it's coming from reputable national media people. But where the Giants' cap situation is, I don't see them making another high-priced acquisition. Thing says like when Jones was rested against Philly. Yeah, he's talking about when Davis Webb was given the start against the Eagles a couple of years ago in the season finale, and he performed well. I always knew Davis Webb could play. He just never got a chance. He got one start in the NFL, and he played well. That was a very respectable game by anybody's imagination if you watch that game. Mikey C says, why draft a rookie quarterback when he's not playing? Trade, Neal, and hired, or swap with New England for Milton. Picks should be used for players on the field this year. Mikey C, that's the whole point. Okay? The Giants don't have their future franchise quarterback. They do not. This Russell Wilson deal, this pending deal, does not change that. The Jameis Winston deal does not change that. They still have to solve that long-term problem. If they can draft later on day 2, or even in the 4th round, a project who they really like with traits, okay? If they can, what you do is you sit them down, you get them in that quarterback room, and you develop him. You teach him what it's like to be a pro. You teach him the playbook. You show him the work habits that he needs. And that's what you do with him. There is tremendous value in doing that if you get the right guy later on in the draft. That's why I'm saying don't force it. Okay? If the quarterback is 120 on your board, don't take him at 65. Don't do that. Don't force it. But if the Giants come up at 65 or at 99 or at 105, in any of those 3 spots, if they come up there and they see that there's a quarterback right in that range who they think is a legitimate project, absolutely take him. Absolutely. That's fine. That makes perfect sense. Aiden Fink continues to give us some clauses here. We should put all of his clauses together so we can get his whole point. I know. Aiden, I apologize. I want to get to some other people too, so I maybe got you off the program a little early. So I am sorry if that's the case. We can always have another conversation. Mr. Muhammad says he means Sanders, point blank, period. Again, you can have that opinion. You are absolutely entitled to have that opinion. I think if I were to poll 100 people tonight, 99 people would disagree with you. But you can have that opinion. There is no right or wrong answer. He says, grab the quarterback. If you were the general manager, you could do that. You're not in the chair for the Giants, and neither am I. So guess what? Neither of our opinions means diddly to Joe Shane. Mikey C, to me, Graham is the best, ready to play right away. Again, Mikey C, how many times do I have to tell everybody out there? I love Mason Graham. I just can't pass on a Hunter or a healthy Carter to take him. This is why I said months ago, 2 months ago, I think it was, I said, listen, if you're the Giants, you're going to get a veteran quarterback. I've said all along they'll get a veteran starting quarterback, so I'm not taking one at 3. One of my plans at that time, Mikey C, I want you to listen up. One of my plans at that time was trade from 3, go down to 6, okay? Hold up the Raiders. At that time, they did not have a starting quarterback. Geno Smith had not been acquired yet. I said, let the Raiders trade up from 6 to 3. Let them go get Shedeur Sanders. He's been connected to them by a lot of rumors. Let the Raiders go get Sanders at 3. You're the Giants, move down to 6, but you're going to demand next year's number 1 and at least the number 2 to make that move. Because now at number 6, I got a really good chance at still getting Mason Graham. And I'm going to have in my pocket a number 2 pick, an extra number 2, okay? And I'm going to have an extra number 1 next season, which if I needed to use on a rookie quarterback in the 2026 class, I would now have an extra number 1 that I could use as part of the bait to trade up if I needed a rookie in 2026. You follow the logic there? That's how I was connecting the dots. That's how I draw my blueprints. That's why I stay up till 3:30 in the morning many nights, trying to figure out if I was the general manager, what would I do? What are the possibilities? How could I plot something out that makes the most sense, that even allows you to increase your options and hedge your bets? So Mikey C, I did have a plan for that. But then the Raiders went and acquired Geno Smith, and I believe took Shedeur Sanders out of their equation. They're not desperate to get him now. So I don't think you can make a trade with him to move down to 6 and hold them for ransom with a first rounder and at least a second round pick. That's now out of the question. At least I think so now that they got Geno. So I was trying to find a way to make all of these things work. And that was one of the ways I found. And then they went and the Raiders went and got Geno Smith. Basically blew that plan right out of the water. Sean Jackson says, besides Neighbors, which Giants wide receiver or offensive player do you think will benefit most from Russ or Jameis being our quarterbacks? And if we draft Travis Hunter, where does he fit on the Giants depth chart on offense and defense? Well, Sean, here's my thought on that. Number 1, I do think that you will get, hopefully, Slayton, who we know averages 15 yards a catch. He's one of like only 6 players in the NFL who over the last 6 seasons have a career average of 15 yards or better. He's been an underrated player. I know he's had some drop issues occasionally, but he's gotten better at it. And his production getting downfield has actually been pretty good. And especially considering that the Giants don't get a lot of stuff downfield, he is a threat. So I do think that Slayton will have a better chance to enhance his stat line. I do believe that if Hyatt can break out and have the kind of season that is commensurate with his talent, I think Hyatt could actually become a factor this year. And quite honestly, I think all of the other targets, Theo Johnson could benefit from Russell Wilson. So could Tyrone Tracy coming out of the backfield. And do I dare say Wan'Dale Robinson too? Why not? To have an experienced quarterback who's been in this league so long and has seen everything that defenses can throw at him, has the ability to escape the pocket and make some plays away from the pressure, can make all the reads, can not only throw the short stuff, but also has the ability to burn you deep. Russell Wilson will make everybody in that wide receiver room more productive. As far as Travis Hunter, I think you draft him, and what you do is you put pressure on Tay Banks. And you tell everybody that Travis Hunter is going to be primarily, as he comes in as a rookie, a cornerback. And allow him to put pressure on Tay Banks to make Tay Banks meet the challenge and stave him off. so that he and Paulson Adebo can be the two starting corners. If that works, and those two guys start at corner, I now have the ability to give Travis Hunter a small chapter in the playbook on offense where he could be potentially part of the 4 wide receiver package. Okay? Or when the Giants go empty backfield and go 5 wides. One of them will be probably Johnson, Theo Johnson. You probably go 4 wides and a tight end as a stand-up. So you give him a small chapter on offense. I've said this on Big Blue Kickoff Live during the day. If that works out that way, Banks and Adebo hold down the starting jobs. Now, if Hunter's presence makes Banks better and brings out all of his potential, you've still won. You've still gotten what you needed to get, and that is top-notch play at both corners. So now you do that. It may mean that while Banks and Adebo are playing at a high level, that Travis Hunter will only impact the game on offense. But oh my goodness, let's say he plays only 10 plays on offense. There's a chance he could make 1 or 2 explosive plays out of those 10 plays and could have a significant impact on a game, even with only a small chapter of the playbook. So you use him there in that role while Banks and Adebo are holding down the starting corners. If either guy gets injured or either guy slumps and isn't playing well, then you've got Travis Hunter, who you're already teaching defense to give him the opportunity to go in and play one of the starting boundary corners. And at that point, maybe you say, I don't know, when does that happen? September, October, November? Maybe it doesn't happen his whole rookie season, but that's okay. Because if those two guys are playing great cornerback for the whole season, you're thrilled with that if you're the Giants. And then Travis Hunter is still playing in an offensive package that allows him to be incredibly efficient. Because if he's going to get 10 snaps a game, but makes two plays a game, they could be very impactful plays. There's nothing wrong with that. He makes the offense that much more dangerous just by being on the field. That's why I would take Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter. Because I think there are multiple ways that Hunter impacts the Giants. But if he's gone at number 2 and Carter's healthy at number 3, you take Abdul Carter. Fine, no problem. I'm loving it. That's the answer to your question, Sean. That's how I see it. Mikey C says, Barter, Carter, sleeper player, hopeful around 3rd, sleeper running back, Cameron Skedaboo. You've already heard me talk about Skedaboo numerous times since the combine. He's a power back. Exactly the kind of guy I'd love to have in my running back room. You said you would like to make a trade for extra picks. Again, I understand that. Matthew Bauer says, I know people are hyper-focused on needing to fix the long-term quarterback solution, but I think the majority of fans will be fine with drafting to the strength of this draft rather than forcing it. Matthew, I hope you're right. I know since the season ended, even before the season ended, there were so many fans pounding the table, demanding that the Giants take a quarterback at number 3. I have tried to tell those people that did not make an awful lot of sense to me. That's just the way I feel. It doesn't mean they're right or they're wrong, or I'm right or I'm wrong. It's just the way you go about building a team. He says, take a page from other playoff teams that did the same thing and didn't force it. The only thing I will tell you that we know based on history in this league that when teams do overdraft and force players, more often than not, it will hurt your ball club. That's historic. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. That's not a figment of our imagination. Teams who overdraft players because of desperation and decide that, oh my God, I've got to fill that position no matter what, usually turn out very sorry that they did it. In this particular case, is that the way it would turn out? Only time will tell. That's why I will not tell anybody who wants to feel that way that they are wrong. I will simply tell them, if I were a general manager, I would not go that way. And that's the only thing I can say, Matthew. I appreciate your perspective, and I appreciate that you understand where I'm coming from. Because believe me, I've caught a lot of heat from a segment of the fan base that fails to see that side of the logic. Aiden Fink says, he's talking to Mikey. He says, we need more headache players. Starts with the 3rd overall pick. I do believe that Hunter and Carter are headache players. Mikey C says, let's hope the Raiders still like to do that. Sounds like a plan. Quarterback in 2026, Milton in 2025. Mikey C's not giving up. Oh, man, he's a funny guy. Aiden Fink says, Paul, would you have given Seattle a call if you knew Geno was available and given up a 3rd-round pick or not in this year's draft? Remember my call on BBKL thinking he could get traded that week. I don't specifically remember that call. I know I did mention Geno Smith as a guy who I had been told could be moved. But it certainly might have been a call that you may have made to investigate, but it's all hypothetical and in the rearview mirror now. It's really not relevant at this point. Yes, Geno was younger. Yes, you could have had him for more years than Russell Wilson. I probably would not have, to be frank with you. Again, it's a hypothetical, and I'm really not interested in turning back the clock right now. But I think I'm on board with the blueprint that I've stated for several months. I don't think I would have changed it, and I see the Giants have followed it. So let's just say that all systems are go right now. Alex Smith says, it was a good idea to get Russ as a bridge, not after signing Winston. I'm not sure exactly. Alex Smith, maybe did you really want Jameis Winston to start games for you this year? Is that what you're trying to say? I told you earlier in this program, from the very second that Winston visited the Giants and also Joe Flacco visited the Giants, those guys were brought in, and it was always my belief that it made the most sense that those two guys were being brought in as potential number 2s, as backups. I never thought that any interest in Flacco or Wilson was going to be as the starter. And it's obvious. It was then, and it is today. I quite honestly don't know why some people didn't see it that way. A lot of media seemed not to see it that way. I never understood why. It wasn't a matter of Winston or Wilson. They weren't going to be brought in for the same slot. Winston was being brought in to be backup quarterback number 2. Wilson, if he was going to be brought in, was going to be starter, quarterback number 1. They were never being considered for the same slot. So it was never an either or. Common sense told you that. You wouldn't have to listen to me to figure that out. Somehow, some of the media didn't understand that. I don't know why, but they didn't understand that. And if you listen to our program here, the Big Blue Kickoff Live several weeks ago, when we had a gentleman on who covers the Steelers for their flagship radio station, KDKA. He made it very clear, very, very clear, that the Steelers were all in on Aaron Rodgers. And they were going to do everything they could to get Aaron Rodgers, which made me triple down on the fact that I believe the Giants were going to wind up with Russell Wilson, and it was the right move for the Giants to make. I have never wavered off of that for the last several weeks. I still don't understand why so many people did. Why would you come off of the most logical solution? It never made sense to me. 2 + 2 = 4, folks. Let's not create new math. Mikey C says Hyatt is trade bait. Well, if you're going to trade him, you're trading him at an all-time low value, because in his first 2 years with the team, the production has not equated to anything that's going to get you much. So why would you do that? I don't know. Soccer Span, P-Dot, get some sleep. Shane needs to keep adding blue chippers. Number 3, take Hunter over Carter. That's versatility and depth. Take a defensive tackle at 34. Since this draft is deep at defensive tackle, build a fearsome D. Soccer Span, that is exactly what I have been professing. I have my notes here. I said the other day on the Big Blue Kickoff Live show, here's what I had, okay? I had in a situation where the Giants would move up to get Jackson Dart. That was the only one that I had planned out, because there's so much of a swell that says the Giants got to take a rookie quarterback. So I had the Giants signing Russell Wilson. I had them going after, this is now right when free agency started. I thought they could go after Tre'Davious White, but they didn't. They wound up going for the bigger fish in Paulson Adebo. I thought they could go after wide receiver Mike Williams, but instead they re-signed Darius Slayton. And I had them possibly going after right guard Brandon Scherf to help enhance the offensive line. Instead, they decided to bring back Stinney and bring back Van Roten as interior offensive line depth. I then said I would draft Travis Hunter at 3 or Carter if Hunter is gone and Carter is healthy. I then made a deal with Baltimore to move up to 27 only if Jackson Dart was still available. And what I did was I sent 34 and 65 to Baltimore. And at 27, I took Jackson Dart. And at 91, I took Ty Robinson, the defensive tackle. I took Jamari Caldwell, a defensive tackle, at 105 from Oregon. I was hoping to grab Ollie Gordon, thinking that Scatterbull would be gone. So I was hoping to get Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State, who's another bruising running back at 134. I was looking for Troy Horton out of Colorado State, a speedy but tall wide receiver, at 155. I was thinking about Georgia's Nazir Stackhouse, a defensive tackle, at 221. And then I was looking for Jalen Travis out of Iowa State, a traits offensive tackle, at 248. And that was just one round, or should I say, one preliminary projection when John asked me on the Big Blue Kickoff Live show, if you were in control of the Giants draft, give me a really sweet scenario that you'd like to have. And I tried to pick guys who would realistically be in the neighborhood of their picks based on draft guru consensuses, all right, from people who I respect. And that was how I would have approached free agency and the draft. Again, I went with the option because there was so much groundswell of the Giants need to draft a rookie quarterback. I do think that of the second-tier quarterbacks, because everybody says that Ward is number 1, and I agree he's the best quarterback in the draft. And if you're going to assume that Sanders is number 2, Fine, I'll give that. Dart's the next guy. He's the third quarterback that's going to get taken. He's a far better prospect, in my opinion, than Jalen Milroe. Not even close. And I think most people at the combine convinced me of that. And there's been quite a bit of separation between those two guys since the combine in Indianapolis. So going with the flow of the masses that wanted to get a quarterback, I said, okay, let me draw up a scenario whereby the Giants could go get Dart. And so I drew up that trade, which would allow them to get Dart at the bottom of the first round. But again, it only got them to 27. If Dart was not still on the board at 27, then there's no sense in making that trade, and then you just have to make a pick. So that's what I was, the kind of parameters I went by when I did that once through. Now, once free agency was settled, okay, I should now probably make another, I don't want to say mock, because it's not a mock. Mock is usually a prediction of what you think teams will do. I don't do that. I tell you what I would do if I were the GM, given the reasonable amount of logical information that we have at our disposal. So now that free agency is passed and they do have the quarterback, maybe I should also do one of these draft scenarios without them making a move for Jackson Dart to go up and get him at the bottom of the first round, because he won't be there by the time I wanted to trade up for at 27. Maybe I should do that, because I will tell you, a guy like Shuck, a guy like Howard, a guy like McCord, they would wind up, in all likelihood, I would draw one up that has one of those guys being taken by the Giants at some point between the second and fourth rounds. I should probably draw one of those up. And then I should probably draw up another scenario, a plan C, that says, okay, this would be sweet if they decided not to take any of the quarterbacks at all and just pushed it off to 2026. I should do one of those too. But that's for another day. Mikey C says, I'd rather draft a Pat Burst, Illinois, and Trey Hilton, Maryland. Again, I'm not going to criticize anybody's opinions. It really makes no sense. Okay. Goofballs says, what's up, everybody? Let's ride. Besides neighbors, Robinson benefits best. His 3.9 yard depth of target was second lowest among ever. Goofballs, everybody in that room benefits. You're crazy if you're going to limit it just to Robinson. That doesn't make any sense at all. Alex Smith says, unless Dable can unlock Wilson, it won't work. Alex, I think the facts are going to show that you are actually wrong on this one. This is not an opinion. This is facts. Russell Wilson has a very high completion percentage. He has an incredibly high touchdown to interception ratio. He has an incredible deep ball, and he also has the ability to have some escapability to move the pocket. All things that Dable wants to use. So I'm sorry, in this particular statement, the facts do disprove your opinion. I'm sorry, but that's just the case in this particular instance. Soccer Span says, defense is Giants DNA, allows offense not to need to be perfect. 65, take an interior offensive lineman or offensive tackle. 99, take best player available. 105, take Tyler Strock. Okay, I get it. Mike C says, I have no problem with Russ and with Winston. That's why I'd rather swap with New England or trade a player for Milton. Not draft a quarterback because I want the quarterback signed to help the PLOF. Oh, I guess he means help go to the playoffs. I don't know. Goofball says Dable don't need to unlock him. Kafka does. It's all about the system and the scheme and the playbook. Dable's going to be a big part of that, whether or not he calls the plays. It doesn't matter. Dable's going to have a significant hand in the playbook anyway. Alex Smith says Milton is inaccurate. Well, that was a problem when he was in school. He got hurt a lot, didn't have a tremendous amount of snaps, and yes, there was issues with processing and inaccuracies, which is why he was a trait quarterback and a project. It is why last year, folks, you may not remember from Big Blue Kickoff Live, I had said, in my opinion, Milton was a dark horse quarterback to be taken on the 6th or 7th round if you wanted a project, because he's got some good traits. Everybody who comes at me saying the Giants need to trade for Milton, I think you're forgetting. I thought he was a good dark horse project in last year's draft. Maybe you didn't hear me on Big Blue Kickoff Live last year, but he's a guy I had my eye on late in the 3rd day. So it's not that I don't like his toolbox, and it's not like I would not want to have touched him. But under the current situation the Giants are in, and the fact that he's on a team already, who is certainly, you don't want to pay draft capital to go get him now, because they're not going to take a 6th or a 7th. They're going to want a 3rd or a 4th. No. Given those circumstances, no. I don't want Joe Milton. Isaac Moore says, I'm surprised they didn't sign a legit wide receiver. Well, they believe that they did that by bringing back Darius Slayton. Give 2. I asked this in the past, but how do we get Big Blue Kickoff Live to a 2-hour show? I suspect there's a chance we might do 2 hours tomorrow. Okay, Give 2? I do think there's a chance. I'm on again tomorrow with John, and I expect that might wind up being a 2-hour show. Okay, we've had some conversation about that. I usually give you at least 2.5 to 3 hours here. I mean, is that not enough? Aiden says, drafting Kadarius Toney was an example of forcing a pick. Don't force picks. He also mentions that we have Neighbors. Isaac Moore says, not enough. Can't expect Neighbors to produce at that level without real help. And Matthew Bauer says, why are people forgetting that Wilson is a Super Bowl winning quarterback? He may not be what he was, but he certainly got juice left in the tank. He didn't necessarily have good situations in Denver or in Pittsburgh. He now has an arguably better line and receiving core. And finally, Alex Smith says, Russ holds onto the ball too long and takes sacks. He did have a little bit of holding onto the ball too long last year. That is true. There were times during the last month of the season last year, as Pittsburgh's offensive line was having some difficulties, he did do some of that. Russell Wilson is 36 years old. He's not the same Russell Wilson who won a Super Bowl and went to a 2nd Super Bowl. Nobody is denying that. Nobody is denying that. But right now, as you heard Max Starks say, if you listened earlier in the program, he still has enough gas left in his tank to be a good quarterback, a good starter for another year, and make the Giants respectable again. And that's why this deal was made, Alex. And Isaac Moore says, I think Russ was looking for deep guys. Yeah, he does love the deep ball. Folks, that's going to do it. Okay? My voice is kind of running out of gas. We have gone on a breaking news show that we only gave you a half hour's notice to. And how about this? Over 1,600 live views on the program right now. And I thank so much all of you folks for coming on to the program. Again, Big Blue Breakdown Live is part of the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel and media network. We have a show every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. I usually try to go for at least an hour and a half, but you know what? Because you guys have been just pounding the site, I've been going 2 hours. I've been going 2.5 hours. I've been even known to go 3. It happens because you guys seem to demand it. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to try to serve you guys as best as I can. with as much knowledge and experience that I can drum up. I'm just trying to make your enjoyment of the New York Giants as good as possible, because otherwise, why would there be media? We're supposed to be the conduits. We're supposed to give you guys more information so that you can digest and enjoy being a fan. That's what this job is all about. I'm not going to smoke you. I'm going to give you the truth. I'll give you the facts. I will let you feel how you want to feel. So, my thinking is right now, if you guys want to demand it, perhaps we'll be back again tomorrow. I did this emergency show because about an hour, about 7 o'clock or so Eastern time tonight, breaking news came out. The reports by the national media and then by the Giants. Reports are that the Giants have agreed, pending a physical, to a deal with two-time Super Bowl participant and one-time the Lombardi winner quarterback Russell Wilson. That mobilized us into action to try to put a show together. And within an hour, we got this show together. Only got the advisory up within a half hour or less. And you guys still came out to the tune of over 1,600 live people on the stream right now. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. That's awesome. It means that what we did tonight was worth it. And again, for those of you who joined late, whether or not you want to listen to me or you will take everything I say with a grain of salt, you're certainly entitled to if you like. But here's what I will tell you. Go back to the archive and go 15 minutes into the program. Former NFL offensive lineman Max Starks, who is currently the radio analyst for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he came on and for 20 minutes, he gave us a detailed interview, gave you everything you need to know about Russell Wilson and how Russell Wilson can help the New York Giants during the 2025 season. I encourage you to go back to the archive and listen to Max Starks. If you get nothing else from this program tonight, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to have vlogs, who have shows tonight, who are going to give you all kinds of opinions, who are going to give you all kinds of news breaks, who are going to give you all kinds of different angles as to what they think. Heck, that's what I've done for most of this program. But here's the one difference that I tried to bring you tonight. On a moment's notice, I got you Max Starks, an NFL veteran who has been around Russell Wilson for the last year and knows everything about this quarterback's performance. Knows about what he was like in the locker room, what he was like at training camp, and what he was like during the season. Max Starks has better information, in all honesty, than anything I could give you. That's why I went to the effort to get him on this program tonight. I'd like to think that's what made this program special. And that's what made this program worth listening to. Folks, I'm Paul Dottino, part of the New York Giants official broadcast team, and your host here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. Once again, I thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please, if you like anything that you heard on tonight's program, tell your friends about us. We love to take video calls and audio calls in addition to the chat. And you could always subscribe to this channel and make sure that, you know what, maybe there's other stuff during the course of the off season that you'll be able to pick up as well. I'm at X at GiantsWFAN, and I will let you know. At this moment, I'm not 100% sure that I'll be back tomorrow night. We just did 2.5 hours on this pending Russell Wilson deal. I don't have much voice left. And I'm not sure if we're going to do another show tomorrow night or not. But if you keep it to X at GiantsWFAN, I'll let you know if we're coming back tomorrow. Right now, I'm kind of iffy. But you let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on Twitter. If you guys really want me to come back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, maybe we'll do a half hour. Maybe we'll do an hour. I don't think we'll do more than that. Or maybe we will just wait until next Wednesday and do a show again next Wednesday. But I know this. We had breaking news tonight. We mobilized and we tried to bring you the best information and the best content that you could get regarding this incredible news headline regarding the New York Football Giants. Folks, thanks again for joining us. I appreciate it. Be well. And, hey, you can finally rest easy. The quarterback puzzle appears to have been settled. So long, everybody.